What is up, everybody? RLTK Podcast, Jordan here, kicking it with my boy Chris. Chris, what's going on?
Man, what's up, big bro?
And kicking it with my boy Matt, our guest today. Matt, how are you?
Here.
You good,
bro? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, how about the Mavs, though?
Hey, man, look, the Warriors out. I'm a little bit worried about, another team, but the Mavs looking good, though.
Bro, they're in form.
Good.
They are ready to win this chip.
Oh,
And I'm tired of the Cowboys being garbage, so.
I'm just, look, man, me being Dallas everything. I'm Dallas everything. Anything Dallas as me. It is what it is. I need somebody to do something. Texas Rangers don't match up.
Well, wait, Texas won.
They won. Here's the thing. Let me explain. I understand that they're Texas, but they reside in Arlington.
Mm-hmm.
So that don't count?
They're not Dallas Rangers. They're Texas.
Wow. It's that serious?
It's deep for me. It's in my blood. I need something that says Dallas with something on it.
All right. Okay.
I need that, man. And so, like anything, Dallas has to win, man.
Okay.
And so,
all right.
But, Mavs looking good, though. Looking fire.
You a Mavs fan?
Bro, my wife is.
I didn't ask you that.
Yeah, I'm a Bulls fan, dude. I grew up in Chicago in the 90s. How do you blame that?
Look, man, I can't look.
What kind of?
Look,
Yeah.
He's on the goal side. I can't blame him.
Cowboys fan?
I root for them when they're playing because I have to. Otherwise,
I root for him.
otherwise, I'm a Bears fan and a Cubs fan. I'm all Chicago.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
You a Chicago boy, so it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But I lived in Dallas. That's where I met my wife.
That's right. That's why you should support Dallas teams, bro. Like that's where the Lord blessed you.
I know, dude.
You know what I'm saying? Like the ladder came down from heaven, bro. That's where the stone is for you. You know what I'm saying? The ancient landmark, bro. You know what I mean? Like the Lord is speaking, my boy.
Yeah, my son, now my 9-year-old is crazy about the Dallas Cowboys.
As he should be.
He sits down and watches the whole game. He asks for Cowboy things for Christmas. Yeah, he's got a Cowboy water bottle.
I'll continue to say this. The Dallas Cowboys are God's team.
He's enlightened.
That's why
we're not.
That's why we suffer so much.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's God's team.
God's chosen to suffer.
Yeah, exactly. He is predetermined suffering for all Cowboys fans.
It's in the scriptures, actually. Yeah. All right.
Well, Matt, appreciate you being on the pod, bro.
I appreciate being here, man.
Glad that you're here. Obviously, we know who you are. Well, Chris just met you as usual. I've been knowing you for a minute, but tell our listeners, our viewers, who you are. What do you do? What's your story, man?
Yeah, dude. So let me work backwards.
Okay.
Right. So my wife, who you also know, incredible.
Shout out to Jen Fogel. She's a beast.
Yeah, she is. So she's a marriage and family therapist and does a lot of the same things that Jordan does. Specializes in trauma.
So you don't get away with nothing.
Nothing. Sometimes I don't think Jen will listen to this. So I'll say sometimes our kid will look at mom and say, "Mom, I don't need a therapist right now. I just want mom." Even our kids don't get away with nothing, dude. Yeah. So, yeah, she's amazing. She's actually about to start her own counseling practice.
Let's go.
Yeah, this summer. So this has been a long time coming.
It has.
Big deal. And then I have 4 kiddos. I've got a 15-year-old daughter. And
yeah, wow.
Yeah, she's driving now. She drove herself to school today. I was in the car.
Wow.
She almost hit 2 cars.
Terrified? Oh,
2. Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. It was not good. She doesn't understand the turning piece yet, like the speed and the angles.
Oh, yeah.
And yes. And she's just listening to music too much. She's kind of overconfident. So I've been driving with her for like a year and she feels very confident. She's got it. And my wife and I are like, how do we like bring her down a notch without giving her that insecurity that a 15-year-old doesn't need when they're driving? So you can pray for that.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then my boys are 13, 9, and 6. And I would say my first calling, obviously, to them. My second calling would be to Rhythm Community Church. So I'm a pastor at a church that Jordan has also been to. He's preached at it. It is what I would call small and beautiful.
Yeah.
It's
it's amazing.
60 people. We meet at ASU, Poly. We got some college kids, some young adults, some young marrieds, some elderly people. It's incredible, dude. The diversity is good. And I have this girlfriend of mine who's coming to preach June 9th on political ideologies.
Uh-oh.
And she was asking me yesterday. Yeah. She was asking me yesterday. So who am I preaching to? And I was like, legit, probably 50% of the room only watches Fox News. And another 30% probably only watches CNN. And another 20% don't give a crap. And just want to stay as far away as possible. But it's interesting. That diversity in there is pretty interesting. Yeah. So I want
to hear that.
There's some generational diversity. There's some political.
Trying to go?
Yeah.
I want to hear that.
I
want to hear
what she said.
About.
June 9th.
Okay.
Come on.
All right. I'm going.
Okay, bet. We going. Let's do it.
I want to hear it.
She's awesome, dude. You like her.
Very interesting conversation.
It is.
I don't think that's a very hard thing to lay out.
I encouraged her yesterday talk about two things. I don't know if she'll go there or not, but I talked about John 1, you know how Eugene Peterson says Jesus moved into our neighborhood.
Yep.
I like that language.
Incarnation.
So yeah, he talks about the incarnation as moving into our neighborhood. What would it look like for us as apprentices of Jesus to move into other people's political neighborhoods?
Ooh.
To incarnate ourselves in there and to not boss people around, but to show up like Jesus showed up and be a part of the healing, because there's brokenness on both sides. So we talked about that. We also talked about John 10, where the disciples are asking to be in charge to sit at Jesus's left and right.
Yeah. Sure.
You don't know what you're asking.
Yeah. And Jesus approaches it from, what do you want? What do you really want in this? And he's like, well, I can't provide that. And then the very next story is blind Bartimaeus, who he asked the exact same question to. What do you want? Oh, you want to be healed? I can do that. Yeah. I can heal you. So just approaching the political conversation from, what do you really want in this? What's your hope by being in this political camp or not? So I don't know where she's going to go with it. I trust her, but that's our church context. And then my full-time job, my 9-to-5 job that I'm skipping out on right now is I work at Phoenix Children's Hospital. I am I'm one of 100 people that raise money for the hospital. So I'm a part of a large fundraising shop, and we raise $80 to $100 million a year together. And it's incredible, some of the stuff that we're doing. The church used to be the place that supported this kind of thing. Now it's rich people whose kids are sick or know somebody whose kids are sick. It's incredible, dude, watching God show. I think it's right in line with the heart of God, what we're doing.
That's good, bro.
That's dope, man. It's always interesting to me how a lot of things historically the church did. Yeah. Right? The church did a lot of things in history. Now it's like, why we never discuss what the church did. And I understand the sense of like the wrong things, but even I question how do you even know that's wrong? But still it's like,
stop it.
No, I'm serious. Like
I know you are. I know you are.
But still it's like, the church did amazing things
they did.
In history, man. Saved a lot of people's lives, stopped a lot of things from happening. They just historically did great things, and it slowly got replaced.
Yes,
with money and politics.
That's right.
Slowly.
Yeah.
And a lot of this, and to be honest, it's a lot. This is one of the reasons why we're in this predicament today, because we have removed the religious standard from the country, because we have again deemed it to be inaccurate, wrong.
Yeah.
Well,
we've placed it in a category of private and otherworldly.
Yeah.
Rather than communal.
Yeah.
And of this world here.
Exactly.
Public.
Yeah. Public. Yeah.
That's good.
So anyways.
Yeah.
That's
so
really
I get to do that. I grew up in Central Illinois, little farm boy, 2 brothers. I like to say I had a lot of loving eyes on me as a kid. My mom is one of 9 kids.
Yikes.
And they all had kids my age. So I grew up with like 40 plus cousins.
Bro, that must have been dope.
It was awesome, dude. It was awesome. Yeah. So there was a richness there that I wish my kids had. I wish everybody could have that.
I think that's itself is the nature of God itself is communal. That's the way to live life.
Yes. So when I was a youth pastor from 2012 to 18, and I had 4 kids, we were living there in Illinois. I was serving at a church called Eastview Christian Church. We would throw like a last minute dinner. Our family would on a Sunday night, who can come? And there'd be 40 people, just last minute. Let's all pitch
so
in.
dope,
Everybody
bro.
brings a
So
side.
dope.
Dude.
So
Unbelievable.
dope.
So my kids still talk about it. My kids were little. I mean, 6 years ago, my daughter was 9 and everybody else was real little, but they talk about it. They said, we miss our family like that. So there was a richness to my upbringing. The part that was most lacking was we were not a Christmas, Easter church. We did not go to church. And if you ask my mom, I think if you still asked her today, what do you think about the church? Or what do you think about Jesus? She would say, I love Jesus. I pray every day, but those effing Christians. That's the PG version of what my mom would say today. So I didn't come to Christ till I was like 14. And I was telling you guys before we even started this, as soon as I came to Christ, I was a part of a youth ministry where the youth pastor was like, let's start you preaching. Let's get you in there.
Hey, see, Chris is universal. Black, white, it don't matter, bro. You get saved, hey, you called to preach.
That's right.
Because in the black church, you get saved, and they might let you preach a sermon immediately after you just got baptized and you in the pulpit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Here's your handkerchief. Go preach.
Yeah, dude. And I went to one of those conferences when I was 16 that was like, well, if you really love Jesus, will you commit your life to the Lord for full-time ministry? Will you do that? Anybody who wants to come forward now. And so I came forward and people laid hands on me, and an elderly couple in that church paid for me to go to Bible college. They said, you want to go? We'll take you on a tour of Moody Bible Institute, downtown Chicago, and we will pay for you. They knew my mom cleaned houses. They knew my dad was a sheet metal worker. And the church was the church in a lot of ways. Good things, man.
Bro, I got to ask you, because you just brought up a really important thing, which obviously is pertaining to youth ministry. Like, how should we handle that? Because it sounds like when we make these pronouncements and ask these young people if they're called, there is this room for basically emotionally manipulating them, just to keep it a buck. Yeah. So, like, what do we do there? Because we do need young people who answer the call to, like, live for the gospel in our culture, right, in our world, and doing ministry in varying capacities, whether it be planning churches, being youth pastors, being pastors in local congregations, nonprofits, all those different types of things, or just like being committed to, like, really being committed to living it out, like in the workforce, corporations, all those different types of things. But what do we do there? What's the balance on that? Man, is there one?
Look, bro, I'm sorry.
No, please.
All right, I think we have to first acknowledge is that the actual call is to be made in the image of Christ. I think we have to acknowledge. Yeah. It's not even what field you're trying to choose, like it's a career. Right. This is not a career thing. The real goal, the real call is to be made in his image. That's what it is. That's why you should be sipping on milk when you first start. And then when things start to happen, you get to chew on meat. You get to chew on the tough things of Christ. You're right. When you get out here in the world and try to live in this for real, that's the real call. And I think that in itself, because I think we make a distinction now. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we make a distinction between becoming like Christ and then finding a career in Christ. Right? I think we make a distinction between those things. And it's like, when we say the call, it's almost sound like it's a career choice when this is not a career choice. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? So I think to answer that, I think it has to start with the idea of being made into Christ. I think that's where it starts.
Yeah. Yeah. I like what John Stott says about that. He says the goal of God for all believers is to be like Christ.
Yes.
We can land there.
Yeah.
Jordan, to answer your question, I don't know, because I'm with you. I think that we need to invite students, especially, to consider how their gifts might best be used for life. But we know, being in our 30s, 40s, whatever,
getting beat up.
We know the journey ahead. I was lucky enough to have people that not only invited me to consider full-time ministry, but told me stories of how hard it was. So I wasn't disillusioned.
Yeah.
Because I went to GCU a couple of weeks ago. Shout out to my homie Ray Robles. He had me in his class. And my talk was, are you sure you're called? Yeah. And so what I did is talked about all the crap that's happened to me in ministry, all the people that have backstabbed me. And once again, like, there's been amazing things that God has done. God has provided for me in incredible ways, all those different types of things. But there's been some absolute garbage that's happened in ministry. And so like just kind of, there were students who afterwards were like, yo, I thought I was going to get this MDiv and then be the golden child. You know what I'm saying? It's like, nah, bro, that's not how it works. Like, there's a bunch of churches that don't even care about your piece of paper, bro. What are you talking about? And so, like, yeah, I don't even know how to make sense of it because, and my friend said something that's pretty profound. It's like they transition from youth group to college, and they kind of they treat Bible college like it's youth group, and it's not the same thing.
That's right.
And so, yeah, it's really, and I'm an outsider to all that, right? Because I got saved at 20. So for me, like, I was just wilding out until God radically slapped me upside the head and like wrecked my world, right? And so some of this stuff, as I like start to engage with it, you know, as I love youth, like it's very foreign to me. So yeah, it's just interesting, man.
It is, dude. Yeah. So when I graduated from college, I was a youth pastor for 12 years before we moved out here to plant a church, and in Dallas for 6 years, Illinois for 6 years. But through all of that, I found myself reaching back to my high school experience saying, how do I replicate for everyone what I had? Because it was rich. I mean, on Friday mornings, I was praying with 80 and 90-year-olds. They were teaching me how to pray and sit with God and hear him. And, 4 or 5 times a week, I was with my best friends rehearsing, quote unquote, rehearsing our worship set for the following week. But most nights, it did not feel like practice. It felt like we were just practicing adoring God in that room. I mean, we were in tears. We were singing. I didn't realize how formative that was, to have 4 or 5 year best friends. And I'm on the drums. We were a punk rock, like Blink-182 cover band that turned into a worship band. So I'm like breaking cymbals in worship songs. We're singing As the Deer Pants for the Water with a scream to it. It was messy and beautiful at the same time. But then you get to college, and then you get into youth ministry, and you start to see, wait, so my experience can't be replicated, but what good things are transferable? Right. So for me, that older couple that invested in me, not just monetarily, but invested in me emotionally, who opened their fridge to me, who opened their house to me, who took me when Moody rejected me, my first time I applied, I didn't get in. This couple flew me to Florida to say, we know an evangelist in Key West, Florida. He's a friend of ours. Maybe you could just be under him for a year while you wait for Moody to say yes. And it turned out I got home from that trip and Moody accepted me and I went there. But what kind of investment is that?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right. And so when I was a youth pastor for those 12 years, I just tried to provide for all those kids in the way that I was provided for. And I saw the major difference between me sticking with this path of apprenticeship to Jesus and a lot of my friends who did not stick with it was the relationships they had or they didn't have in high school and beyond. I think because I experienced it at such a young age, at every single turn that I had, I sought out those older, wiser, more stable voices. And to this day, I mean, as soon as I moved out to Phoenix, first thing I did, try to find some gray haired guys that I want to become like and just bother them. Just take me for coffee. Let me ask you hard questions. This is really what's going on. Just safe places for me. So that's some of my journey.
Right. Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
I think that takes us into what we want to talk about, because it's clear that like you were formed in a very particular way, and all of us are, but you've kind of grasped it maybe in ways that some of us haven't. Yeah. And I think the spiritual formation conversation as it pertains to where we find ourselves now in youth ministry is more important than it ever has been. Maybe I'm sensationalizing a little bit, but I feel like that is appropriate.
Yeah.
So what is spiritual formation, and is it different from discipleship? Is it the same thing? Are they intertwined somehow? Like what?
Yeah.
Because I think, spiritual formation, we assume that means like, I'm going to go sit in a monastery, or I'm going to go become a monk, or I'm going to take a vow of silence or whatever. And it might mean that. Right. I don't know. But what does it mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, going back to what Chris said earlier, being made into the image of Christ, that's the heart of spiritual formation is there anything that we can do on our end to participate with God's movement in shaping us to be more like Christ and becoming like him, not just externally. And just this week, I was thinking a lot about the biblical meaning of hypocrisy versus the American version of hypocrisy. Because because in America, we talk about hypocrisy in terms of I say one thing, but then I do another. Whereas the biblical meaning of hypocrisy, clearly Jesus is saying, no, you're doing all the right things, actually. You're just doing it for the wrong reasons. Yeah. You're doing it to a lot of us pastors, leaders, we're doing it so that we can grow our ministry larger, faster, we more famous. Like we're going the total opposite grain of the kingdom of God in Matthew 13, which is slow and hidden and painful and incremental and often looks backwards to the journey ahead. Anyways,
bro,
spiritual formation is like that.
You talking about moral hypocrisy?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's so good. Okay, listen. God, that's so dang good, bro. Because I'm sorry to cut you off.
Don't. Please do.
But man, do you understand how hard that is to be accurate morally? Mm-hmm. That is not an easy thing to do when your intentions within itself is selfish and lack foresight and unawareness of its own intent.
Yeah.
Like it's very hard to be morally good.
Yeah.
And I think it was Lao Tzu who talked about virtue. Mm-hmm. And he said virtue doesn't need virtue because it's virtue. But what is not virtuous needs it. Mm-hmm. But he talked about how, like, when you attempt to be virtuous, you can't because you fall into the imitation of it, but not actually being it.
Right.
And I think that falls in line with what you're saying. It's impossible because how can you actually be virtuous?
Yes.
Because that's why the Pharisees fell short. Because they pursued virtue outwardly, externally, but they didn't pursue it internally. That's why they was more that's the whole point of the aid of Christ.
Yeah, bro.
That Christ came to attack moral corruption.
Yes.
He came to align ethical duty. That's what he came for. Nothing of this outside external thing that we try to make sense of, it cannot correct.
Yeah.
What he did, it was actual correction.
Yeah, bro.
That's heavy. That's heavy.
Yeah, and the reason I'm wrestling with it this week, because here I am, haven't been a pastor preaching since I was 14, and I'm still not doing the things that I want to be doing for the right reasons.
Yikes.
I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm saying, okay, so in Psalm 119, verse 36, where it says, would you please incline my heart to you? Would you bend it so that I want the things that you want? And I often start my times in prayer or fasting of just, God, if I'm being honest, I'm doing this thing. I'm praying right now. I'm in the word so that I can deliver a killer sermon on Sunday, so that I can be the kind of person that other people look to or call to. And formation is often, especially in America, individualistic and for the wrong reasons. It's almost like self-help Jesus. I can become... It just is, dude.
Bro, this hurts. Hurts so bad.
It is. People will respect me because they'll see my rule of life. They will see my fasting schedule. They'll see how I'm generous. Yeah. And so much of what Jesus talks about in the Sermon on the Mount, in all the formation, he says what Chris said, which is, this is so hard. It is. You think this bar the Pharisee is setting it hard? I'm setting it so much higher than them.
So high that you can't even get to.
You can't get it.
The point.
That's right.
The point is that you can't get to.
Yeah, dude.
My G, you can't reach.
Look, I got chills, dude. No.
Okay.
You cannot.
There are things, oh my God, bro. And I think this has to be the truth about existence, is that God has set it up in a way that only he can give it to you.
That's right.
That's good.
That's how he set it up.
That's right.
That's how he set up the natural law. That's how he set up the metaphysical realm. That's how he set up knowledge within itself.
Yeah.
He set it all up where you can't do it. You have to run to him.
Yeah.
Now you can debate, you can argue, you can push away, you can do all those things, but at the end of the day, you're gonna have to go to him.
Yeah, dude.
And how can you actually argue that? You're gonna get the same treatment as Job. Where were you when I designed everything? So how can you actually question me? Yeah. That's the hard truth of this existence. And I know a lot of people ain't gonna like it, but this is yeah. Yes, bro. I'm just agreeing with you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Thanks.
And it's like, it's hard to be good.
Yeah, it's hard to be good. And to answer your original question, spiritual formation is integrated into all the elements in discipleship for sure. And I like Matthew 4:19 as a guide for defining discipleship. I think there were like 16 different discipleship organizations back in 2020 that said, let's all just come up with a coherent definition of what do we mean when we say discipleship. And they landed on Matthew 4:19. They all said we all have different robust or simple versions of what discipleship is. But when Jesus says, come follow me and I will make you into fishers of men, let's break that down into a simple, integrated, like unifying definition of, okay, so discipleship is following Jesus. It's being with him. It's spending time with him for sure. It's also, he's going to make us into something. So he's changing us from bad to good. He's reorienting our motives. He's changing us, not just internally, externally, all that. And then he's also calling us to a mission with him. We are called to co-mission with him. And so it is following him, becoming like him, and being on mission with him. And spiritual formation has to do with all of that. He's forming us as into his image as we're with him. He's definitely, it's the centerpiece because he's making us into something that we're not, that we cannot do on our own. Yeah. And then on mission, we know what it's like to be on the front lines. When you're on the front lines, there's not a lot more shaping than when you're on mission with them, with headwinds. I mean, if you've never been sailing and on open water, one time my brother and I tried to go sailing because we went sailing with my grandpa growing up, and it's different in Mexico than it is in Illinois, just for the record. When the wind is pushing you out into the ocean in Mexico, I didn't know that when you turn back towards the wind, when it's that strong, when it's blowing 10 miles an hour, you got to zigzag your way back to shore. Otherwise, you're going to capsize the boat, which, by the way, we capsized the boat. We did it. There's a little kid who was laughing the whole way swimming out to us saying, I thought you said you could sail. And he flipped us back and showed us how to do it. But I just think when you're on mission with Christ, that is so formative in and of itself. Going back to the original thing we talked about. Yeah, it's probably not great to throw a 14-year-old up there on stage. Yeah. But how do you let them exercise their gifts and be on mission?
That's a good question.
How do we give them safe places to tinker around with their giftedness so that they can be on mission now? And I don't know. Yeah.
See why we never get through questions?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
We get through like 2.
That's great.
Yeah, that's good. So why is spiritual formation important for Gen Z, young people, students, youth right now?
Yeah. Well, first off, I saw that question. You texted it to me. And the first thing that came to my mind was this quote by Dallas Willard, where he says, there's no problem in human life that apprenticeship to Jesus cannot solve, which is a bold statement. There's no problem that apprenticeship to Jesus cannot solve. And so think about all the problems, all the headwind that these kids that we love are facing in their life. Think about the anxiety that they're facing. Think about the temptation that they're facing. Think about the complexity with technology that they're facing that we never had to face. Think about their relational isolation that they're all going through, that they are painfully trying to figure out. And they're looking to us for answers, but they're living in a context we never actually experienced.
Yeah, we don't have answers for them.
Their age, we would probably serve them better by asking questions than giving them advice. A lot of being spiritual directors instead of spiritual prescriptors. Let me write you this prescription.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So,
very good.
Yeah, I just think that formation is inviting kids to consider, well, what if God could change you from being anxious to peaceful? It's that like St. Francis of Assisi prayer. God, where there's anxiety, would you bring peace? Where there's doubt, would you bring faith? You know, where there's darkness, would you shine your light? What if not only could we model that, but invite the next generation to consider you can actually become the kind of person that does everything that you're doing with anxiety right now, it can be done better with peace.
That's good.
I think they're desperate.
That's really
for
good.
it. I think they're hungry. I think they're ready to be told some good news about all that.
Yeah, bro. That's so good. I'm just thinking about that. All the things they're doing with anxiety, how much better would they do them with peace?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, it's so true. How anxious this generation, how rushed they are, how connected they are. Like, man, imagine if they got disconnected a little bit, stayed off their phone. Like, you know, in the mental health space, I'm always challenging young people to do different things like that. And it's really interesting to see how fruitful it is for them, whether they're like believers or not, just like disconnecting from that world and giving themselves some space. And I think, so I've been thinking about this a little bit too. You can tell me what you think about this. I think part of the reason why faith is so difficult for this generation to consider is because they don't live in their bodies. And so their like teleology is like all jacked up because of technology, right? Like their phone is like completely messed up their sense of like self and their end and why they exist and what they're here for. The phone makes you the product. The phone isn't actually the product, you are, right? And its goal is to keep you on it.
That's right.
So it feeds you whatever it feeds you to keep you there. That's its purpose, its goal.
Yeah.
And so as a consequence, I think it's like very practically in terms of how it's forming them, is disfiguring them, right? And we'll get to that a little bit more in a second as well. But I think if we can get young people, which once again, I think is connected to spiritual formation, off their phones and into nature, so they can feel the grass in their feet, they can smell the trees and hear the birds of the air and see the mountains and the beauty that exists in creation. Yeah. I think what will happen is Romans 1, right? And I think they'll see him. They'll see God. Yeah. What do you guys think about that? Any thoughts?
I think the thing you're speaking on is the idea. So I agree with you. I'm trying to figure out how to say this because it is breaking down the mental structure on how it's supposed to function, right? It's breaking down the order of how you ought to perceive certain things, and we see evidences of that in how they talk, how they move, how some of them don't leave their room, things of that nature.
Yep.
And I think it's breaking down the design of God. I think we have to understand this is why we have to understand how important the design of God and how he mapped out, how he drew out life of a human, right? Mentally, spiritually, emotionally. He drew us out to be a particular way. And it's funny that it's called spiritual formation. And it's also funny that you drew to nature, because nature within itself is not an ideology. It is a state of is. It's a place where is exists, where it doesn't need any correction. It is a is. It's a place of being, a place that we are not at because we have fallen from the grace of God, right? And we need Jesus to bring us back, right? Jesus bringing us back to the state of is, nature.
I got you.
Right? Like it's not, we're so far from being, and you can see the attempt in humanity, right? When they're trying to meditate, when they're trying to seek out new mysticism, right? The idea of those higher experiences, right? Higher knowledge, pure truth, enlightenment, right? They're trying to get to this place of is, right? This place of being, right? And so I think those attempts that we're trying to is not getting us there, which is creating false teachers, but also that's what I think. I think what Gen Z is trying to get at is the place of is, where things flow naturally without cause. It's just there, right? There's nothing else to add to it. There's no definition for it. You know it. And I think, and that's what's beautiful about God, because when He reveals it to you, there is no question. You just know, right? And so that's why I meant when I said there are certain things you have to go to Him with. There are certain things you cannot arrive to with logic and reason.
That's right.
It just has to be given to you.
Yeah.
And I think that has to be given to you. You can't earn it. I don't think there's no moral pathway to it for us. I think it just has to be given.
Yeah, and
that's why I think.
So you're talking revelation, right? And I think what I'm saying is there's general revelation, right? And I think one of the things we could probably call this young generation back to is general revelation, which would be nature, the things that have been revealed to us, and we can see His eternal Godhead and power through those things, right? And I think technology, whether this was intended or not, I don't know, but it is a direct affront to general revelation. Like, it literally pulls you out of the world and pushes you into another one.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like, that's where they live. They don't live here. They live there in the digital world, right? They come here to eat, sleep, and take poops. You know what I'm saying? And then they go back to where they live, which is the digital world, right? And what I'm saying is, I think that is doing some things to them that we don't even understand. And let's be real, it's doing things to us that we don't understand either.
That's right. This last week I was thinking about, because somebody said it, and I forget where I even heard it, but when they said it, I was like, man, that's so weird, because everybody in our culture right now resonates with this idea of, I'm just tired. I'm exhausted. And my 15 and 13-year-old, if you ask them most of the time, how you feeling? They'll use words like that. I'm tired, Dad. I'm so tired. I'm exhausted. And I was thinking this last week, how crazy is it that the $1 billion+ industry of energy drinks in our culture today are geared towards young people who have the most energy, who have inherently in their bodies, in their circadian rhythm. Like, we slow down in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Energy drinks should be marketed to us. We feel tired, but no, these 300 milligram caffeine jolts are geared towards, hey, you're exhausted. We got the fix. We got the fix for you.
How many of these young people drinking coffee now? It's crazy.
It's crazy, dude. But like you said, part of it is they think they're exhausted when in reality they're lonely and they're bored. They say the words, I'm exhausted, but really, if they took a 5-minute walk outside and got some vitamin D and took some deep breaths, they would find within their body the energy that they're craving. It's like the Lord is saying to them, hey, I got what you need. If you would come to me into creation, seek me and I will give you the desires of your heart. You will not find it in Red Bull. You will not find it in Dutch Brothers or Black Rock. What you seek is not there. Now, those are good, tasty, beautiful things that when done rightly can be glorifying to God. Yeah. Please. Yes. I'm not against coffee. I'm definitely not against energy drinks. I'm not preaching against it, but I am saying we're so unaware, not just them, but us, of our own exhaustion, that we don't even know the sources of why we're exhausted. And I think you're right, that if we can get them out into nature, my kids, the reason why as a family, we take more family vacations to state and national parks is because our kids come alive in those settings. When I take them to an amusement park, they come home more exhausted than when we went.
It's good.
But when I take them into the forest and we play in the water, and they'll come home tired, but like a good tired.
Yep.
Like, oh actual man, tired. Actual tired.
I like that. I'm sorry. Keep going. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. So I do think one of my favorite things I used to do with students is once a year I would take them to a retreat. And sometimes we would go to like CIY Move, but on the back end of that 5-day conference, I would take them to like a state park and we would stay in lodges. And I'd say, hey, for the first 3 hours, we're all going to be together, but we're going to practice silence and solitude together. We'll see you at dinner. We'll break the silence fast then. And most kids at that time would be tearful about what God revealed to them in the quiet, in that space. I used to take senior boys, 18-year-old, 17-year-old boys, on an overnight trip where we would do 24 hours of silence together. We ate dinner, and then we fasted the next morning and lunch, and then we would break it with a feast the next night and talk about, how was that for you? That extended time of silence and solitude. Even though we weren't even necessarily apart from one another, we just weren't talking to each other. And that was met a lot of times with tears of, I can't believe I wasn't noticing all that was in me. And I think sometimes in youth ministry, we think what kids need is they need more of this, they need more of this, but maybe they just need some space. Maybe the greatest gift you can give them is space. And I also think as a dad of two teenagers, one of the greatest things you can do is ask their parents questions, not prescriptively, but how are you creating space in your home? You know, because I know for a fact my kids are some of the only kids that plug their phone downstairs. I know that because I see how many text messages they wake up with, and as opposed to when they put the phone down at 7:00. And I also know that I'm one of the only dads that I know that at night I still lay down with my 13-year-old. I still lay down with my 15-year-old, and I just listen to them. And most of the time, that's the best. That's the meat of conversation. It's like all day long, you could ask them how you're doing. And they're like, I'm fine. I'm fine. You get them alone at bedtime with those thoughts that are running through, and all of a sudden you can't get out of the room. You're stuck in there for the next hour.
Yeah.
And I love laying hands on my son, you know, and praying, God, is there anything on your mind for Jack tonight? Anything I can pray over? And just listening for what the Lord might, being curious about, God, is there anything for him tonight? Let me just bless him. And he loves that time, and it bonds us. There's an attachment there that wouldn't otherwise be there. And I think as youth pastors, we think it's our job when really it's our job to support what's happening in the home. It's to be equippers of those moms and dads, which is hard. That partnership is hard.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's the parent question is such a hard question, especially like when you get into the more urban context too, or just settings where parents may not be around because of separations, which obviously we know is urban, suburban, rural, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like parents are getting divorced at a high rate, or just not getting married anymore. But I think also then like some of the unique challenges of, parents never being in the home, or getting raised by grandparents, or parents working multiple jobs. Yeah, man, it gets so complex.
Yeah, I think
one of the youth pastor.
Yeah, one of the gifts that we can give parents is inviting them into rooms with us and the kids and their kids or grandparents, where we can practice the things in public that we hope they do in private.
Yep.
So one of the things that I would do with parents as a youth pastor is once a year we'd bring them in, usually in May, graduation season time, and we would say, "All right, parents, put your hands on your kids and just pray with me. God, what's on your heart for my kid? What can I pray over it?" And then whatever comes to your mind, just say a simple prayer. And to be honest, I heard from many, many parents over the years, that's the first time they ever laid hands on their kid and prayed for them. Talk about embodiment. They never touched their kids and act like the way that Jesus was with people and touched them and was like power came from that somehow. And then the reverse was even more powerful, where I'd say, okay, thanks, parents. Kids in the room, put your hands on your mom and dad. Pray and ask God, what's on your heart, God, for my mom and dad, and pray for them. There were always just snot tears in that moment, hearing kids pray for their moms and dads. Though, when I think about what kind of spiritual formation can be done, what is accessible, we can provide that kind of space. That's not rocket science. And kids, they might not want to pray with their friends, or they might not want to pray with their youth pastor, but they're most comfortable with their parents. It's probably most important that their formation is in the home, because we all know the bull crap that kids can come to church with and pretend like they got it all together. At home, their mom and dad knows exactly who they are. They know all that mess. But I think that breaks down some barriers.
I think it sounds like what you said, that parents need to give them space. And it's because it sounds like, because usually when I hear about spiritual formation, it's more like what God is doing to you. So when we're together, it sounds like giving space for God to do his thing in them, right? And then being there, you know? And so It's interesting how sometimes simple the answer is, but it's very hard to apply those things because a lot of times you want to take control and correct things, and
Yeah.
so it's like it's almost like the level in the sense of leadership, right? It's like if the leader is not being poured into, then the team can't be poured into. Right?
That's right.
And so how can we help parents with their spiritual formation?
Yeah,
right? So they can help their kids with their spiritual formation.
Yeah,
right? And so because the kids don't have that, right? They're the ones that need more covering.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying the parents don't, but they're more vulnerable.
Yeah.
Than the parents are.
It's almost like youth group needs to be for parents, not kids. Like if you have a high schooler, you come to youth group every Wednesday.
Good.
Hey, facts.
Here's the deal. This is for free for all you youth pastors out there. This was in my opinion, my greatest recruiting tactic for volunteers in my youth group.
Okay.
We would have parent meetings for different camps and stuff. And you have fall retreats, winter retreats, whatever. But in those rooms, I would be at the door talking with parents. And if I had all sensed from a parent a vibe, this is the question I was asking. Do I want my kids in my youth group to turn out like this parent? If there's an inkling of yes, if there's an inkling of, yeah, this person seems solid, I'd say, hey man, can we just grab coffee? I want to talk about your kid. They will almost always to want to talk about their kid. And especially if a youth pastor is saying, I want to make myself available to you. In that meeting, I would look forward 6 months or 12 months. I say, hey, we got a missions trip coming up for Kenya. Would you come with me? I remember this guy, Dale Avery, 60 years old. I want my kids to turn out like Dale. He was so solid, simple, quiet, but faithful. Just great guy. And I loved his kids too. I mean, his kids were solid because he was solid. And so Dale, he said no at first. And I said, let me talk to your wife, Dale. So Laura, she convinces Dale, go on this Kenya trip. That was 2015. We are 9 years later today. Dale became a discipleship group leader after that. Because after that trip, actually on that trip, on the flight home, I said, Dale, you were incredible this week. How would you feel about doing life on life discipleship with these kids? Not with your daughters, be in a different group, but at least you'll have a pulse on what's going on. Well, that week he fell in love with those boys on the trip. And he became a discipleship group leader, led for a few years. Now he leads the discipleship leaders, the other parents, into other groups now, 9 years later. But I just think if we can get parents to those spaces that their kids are in the room, those CIY type experience, those camp experiences, those winter retreats, if we can just somehow get them to, because they need to be in youth group. The parents need to be a part of it. And I understand not every one of them can. But if you say to a parent, hey, I'm going to sponsor you, I'm going to figure out how to pay for your $300 trip here. If you just come and pour into some other kids and you'll get to see what your kid's experiencing. That was my greatest recruiting tactic in 12 years. Because once they taste and see for themselves how good it is and what an impact they can have, they just don't know how relevant they are. All these gray-haired people that are in our churches, they don't know that they have some things that every single one of those kids is craving. They have time, they have attention, they have legitimate wisdom, not ideas from books, but wisdom that they can share. And so anyways, I think that's key to spiritual formation, getting parents in the room.
That's good, bro. So good. Yeah. It's like the age old problem in youth ministry. Like how do you do it? How do you get them there?
Yeah.
How do you keep them there? But I think it takes more intentionality on the side of the youth leader, right?
Yeah.
To do their best. And I guess engage with the parents that are willing to engage and kind of go from there. And I think once again, like to your point about the kingdom of God growing slowly and painfully, and sometimes it feels like you're going backwards to go forwards.
Mm-hmm.
Like you may reach out to 50 parents and only one responds.
That's right.
But you start with that one, right?
Uh-huh.
And then over time, trusting that the Lord's gonna bring the increase and grow that.
Yeah.
So 5 years from now, you might have 20 parents that are involved, but it might have started with just one, and your faithfulness to that work. And I think for a lot of youth workers, obviously, putting in all that work to try and engage parents, and then not many of them engaging is pretty discouraging. Especially as usually if you're a youth worker, you're pretty young and you're looking for some wins in ministry, right? And then you've got all the challenges of your senior leaders, expectations of parents, your own expectations for yourself, the expectations of the students. So yeah, man. I think engage that one. Go ahead, bro.
I think some of the difficulties of, because I want to hop into spiritual formation real quick.
Do it.
Me being a Christian and me been following Christ for about 15 years now, and seeing the transitions and what he does to me, right? When I first got introduced, 2010, I was young. I was an infant, really, to be honest. Just full of energy and just sipping on baby milk, bro. Just sipping on it, bro. I was amazed. Every word that came out of the pastor's mouth, my mind was blown. Didn't have no context. I didn't understand anything. I was just, all I knew was Christ. And some days I wish I was there again, if I was honest.
Yeah.
I wish I never asked one question, to be honest. And so it's now I'm in this place where it's like you really have to allow Christ to form you. Like it means something when the scripture talks about to be molded.
Yeah.
We're the clay, he's the molder. That's an objective truth. He is the molder, we are the clay. That means something.
Yeah.
And there's depths to that, because how much choice do you have as a clay? You don't have that many choices. Okay. And we have to go there, right? There's not a lot of choices in this realm, in this world. And once Christ takes a hold of you, he takes a hold of your conscience. And I was thinking about this too, and I want to hear you, because what does God use for the moral law that he created?
Yeah.
Like, what is the metaphysical enforcer of moral law? And it has to be consciousness, right? It has to be that. And I think he uses that for spiritual formation, right? Because the Holy Spirit convicts the conscience, right? He convicts the self that is aware of the Holy Spirit convicts the self that is not aware of self, right? He brings it to the awareness of what you're doing. And I think, like, spiritual formation is very difficult to grasp. And a lot of times I think it's because we just don't have the language for it.
Yeah.
Like we don't know how to talk about it.
That's right.
And maybe there's some books out there, and if y'all have any, leave some down in the comments and let us know. But it's like the language to talk about this is very difficult, because this needs to be laid out, because how can we tell parents to help their kids be spiritual formed in Christ when we don't have the language for these things, right? We understand to pray, to read, to fast, to serve, to give, right? To be selfless. If you don't know anything about spiritual formation, the one thing we do know is to copy the Jesus of the scriptures.
Yeah.
That's the one thing we know. Do what he did in that. And maybe that is the foundational piece of the starting point of spiritual formation. Is just, look, bro, if you don't know, then just read that and just do whatever that is. And you're going to make bumps. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to be crazy legalistic, as we were, because we just wanted to be that. Right. Then you will come to understand grace, mercy, love. You'll lean back a little bit. All right, bro, I tried that. That's not that big of a deal. Like, but we need to create a language for this.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the big struggles when we talk about big topics like this, is because we don't have the particular ways of talking about it.
Yeah, I do. That's good. Yeah. It's hard to talk about something when you don't even have the words.
Yeah.
Just the foundational language
that
you're talking about.
It's tough.
Yeah. So here's a couple simple tips that I give everybody when they start asking about, okay, dude, so practically, how do I start integrating this into my own life and into the life of other people? And the first thing I say is, when Jesus left this earth, this is painful for people to hear, but he didn't leave them a Bible and say, hey, go study this.
Right. It wasn't made yet.
Wasn't there yet. So
it was being passed around. Be encouraged.
Yeah, man. No, he simply says, you guys right here, you stay together. So community, I'm going to leave you with a community. I'm going to leave you with some people.
Yeah.
But even if you're together, don't you dare go out and do anything until the Spirit comes. So
Bro, that's a good reality of the pain.
Yeah. So that's, I think, a good question to ask in whatever context you're in is, what does it look like for me to wait together for the Spirit? And for me personally, one of the best tools that I think has come out in the last 5 years on entering into this spiritual formation pathway is what's called Lectio 365. It's a simple, accessible, my 12-year-old can use it, or an 80-year-old can use it, but it's written by the global church. It's actually an Anglican resource, but it's ecumenical. I know there's Baptists that contribute to it, Lutherans, Pentecostal, non-denominational voices from across. You'll hear different accents on it every day. It's a free resource like the Bible app, Lectio 365. All right. And in the mornings, it has a Lectio for the day. And I do it. I personally do it every day because I'm inviting my church to do it, my community to do it. And we're waiting on the Spirit with that tool. Every day there's a psalm. It reads scripture slowly. It gives you space to, it gives you space and language to start asking, okay, what does this look like for me? And then in the evening, it does an Ignatian practice called Examine, where you're looking back on the previous day and you're saying, God, where did I get it today? Where did I partner with you? And that was an awesome moment. When I was on that podcast with Chris and Jordan, that felt like you were a part of that. And I was paying attention to you. But where in my day did I miss it? Where did I just blow on past you? You know, as Vincent St. Paul says, like the one who hurries delays the things of God. Where did I delay your work today by my pace? Where did I run past you? Yeah. Or where were you ahead of me and you were like, come on now, I'm here. Get out of come on. I know this is a little awkward. I know this feels ill-fitting, but let me show you the way. Come on. And so examine at the end of the night to say, okay, God, I'm receiving your grace and your mercy for those moments I missed it. I'm celebrating those moments we were together, and I'm recommitting myself for the next day. And it just gives you that lattice for your vine to grow up on. I think that's a really easy,
good. I like that.
Accessible resource for anybody that's doing ministry, youth pastor, lead pastor, whatever. But I think it's important that you do it with other people. I just think too much of our formation is individualistic in America.
Talking about America. Yeah.
So if you were going to recommend 3 books, let's land the plane with this, 3 books for someone who's going to jump into this world and start to engage it for themselves. Yeah. What 3 books would you recommend?
So I've only skimmed through this book, but it is a great distillation of all the formation books out there. And it's Comer's new book, Practicing the Way. Cool. He talks about being with Jesus, becoming like Jesus, doing what Jesus did. But he pulls from Dallas Willard, Richard Foster. Okay. So he's early church fathers and mothers, Pete Scazzaro. If you want a good taste of it and you want it you just don't want to be bored by it. You just want to know what is this about? I think that's a great intro. That's a great intro.
What's the name of the book again?
Practicing the Way.
Practicing the Way.
Yeah, he just talks a lot about how when Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, the life, the church for so long has practiced. What is the truth? Let me give you the truth. And we forgot about the lifestyle of Jesus. And so it's all about, how do I enter into this way? I think that's great. After that app, and I think if you read it with 1 or 2 other people, it'd be helpful to do it with them. And then I also think there's just so many good books out there, and there's so many good voices over the last 100 years that have written on spiritual formation. And so,
well, give us so you gave us a new guy.
Yeah, it's a new
Everybody
guy.
knows Comer. Give us
the magnum opus of spiritual formation is The Divine Conspiracy by Dallas Willard.
Okay.
I don't know of a spiritual formation voice who hasn't read him, respects him, references him more than anybody. Everything that you're going to read in Comer's book, I haven't read one seminal idea from that guy. Not one, dude. Yeah. I love him, but he's just ripping and pasting, and in a good way. He's contextualizing it to 20 and 30-year-olds, but he's getting all that meat
from Willard.
So if you want to go to the source, skip Comer, buy The Divine Conspiracy. It is phenomenal. The dude taught philosophy at UCLA for a long time, like 30 years. This dude taught, and he speaks it's just timeless words.
And then give us a desert father or a church father.
Yeah, you want to play around with some stuff.
Yeah,
you could go one of two routes.
Okay.
Two of my favorites. The Prax of the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence. There's some good translations. Okay, that's a monk who was insanely intuitive about how do I wash dishes and partner with the Lord.
That just sounds wild.
He was a dishwasher in a monastery. We're still reading his work today. So
I respect that.
Unbelievable. So either him or maybe Thomas à Kempis's The Imitation of Christ is phenomenal. You get into the heart of that dude's soul and his own spiritual formation journey. Those are two that I would recommend. There's 100 more, but those are two of my favorites.
Shameless plug. If there was a youth worker or youth leader who wanted to engage with an organization or a ministry that would help them with this type of stuff, where would they go?
Yeah, so two that I work with that I love, obviously, because I work with them. One's called Harbor Ministries. You just go to harborministries.com. If you're a younger youth pastor in your 20s and 30s, there's a 2-year spiritual formation journey called Rhythm in 20. So 100 guys apply. We take 20. We're looking for guys like you, okay? Because usually it's 15 business CEO type like leaders, and we're looking to get 5 or so youth pastors that are that age. If you're older, if you're what we call a seasoned leader, you're more of a cast iron skillet. And
got some grease on you.
Yeah, you got some grease on you. Then we have another journey called Rogue. That's for older leaders, and that's incredible. But then also I work with a ministry called Unhurried Living, and that's more monastic. We lead retreats at monasteries in Oceanside, California, Malibu, and there's a lot more online classes. So that's unhurriedliving.com. And all my information is on both of those. But yeah, if I can be of help at all, if those two aren't fitting, I know of a bunch more that you could partake of.
Thank you, bro. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thanks for blessing us with some rich conversation today. I got a lot to go think about now. Thank you. Thanks for that.
You mind if I pray for everybody?
Yeah, man. Do it.
As we exit out?
Do it.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Father, I know that whoever's listening right now, you see them and you know them and you love them. And I'm asking very simply that through this podcast and through your Holy Spirit, that you would disrupt and direct whatever you want to do, however you want to do it. We say, yes, we trust you, Lord. Help us to trust you more in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, bro.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. Well, that's the beginning of the conversation, not the end, like we always say. Questions, comments, concerns, hit us up. You already know where we are. We love you. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.
Peace, brothers.